Yo, what's up guys, Seiishizo over here. We're gonna be doing Siege today. I actually got 3 Sieges combined in one video because most of my Sieges don't take that long, because mostly what I do is Lucian. So actually, I do want to make a request. I tried to do it myself, I couldn't make it work. But can anyone make this thing into like a picture with Lucian, and then the text where it rather says than lizard, it says Lucian? Just a simple request. Like, I'm not sure if anyone can make that work, but it will be absolutely dope. DM me on Discord if you can make that work. But let's look at the sieges, because first of all, I do actually start off with a Lucian right there. These days, I mostly not necessarily go through all of the hits and then record the hits while doing them. I actually go through the hits and I just re-record them after later, which makes my life a little bit easier for recording them all in one go rather than having like 12 different files of having everything to go. In this case, I'm using the Maximillian, which is kind of the lazy style of using Maximillian, of just simply using a Maximillian that is runed up for arena defense. It's mostly not really the best way out there. If you want to go for Maximillian, you preferably want your Maximillian on like super high damage on Swift as well. And this was like more of a Bruiser, Vio kind of style. I think I have Maximillian rune on like legit every different style. Swift, Despair, Vio, Wheel sometimes Blade, sometimes like bunch of like add damage, sometimes full crit rate. I've done the whole bunch. Also in the final siege, so that's like the third siege for this video pretty much, or not the third hit, but the third like whole siege, because I'm doing like 30 hits in one go pretty much. I will be showcasing a little bit more runes, at least for what I re-runed and that kind of stuff. But in most cases, like if you want to see the runes on any of the hits that I am doing, I can show you the video that is in, let's just put it in the description down below. I have one video where I did do a showcase of all of my siege hits and then also all of the runes. To be honest, the runes haven't really been changing all too much, so it's kind of just puzzling like where does what fit. Mostly you switch like a damage on X element for like the Ian in this case. You do want to do the most damage on which you do for the first rotation without the attack buff, and then you just make your way work from there. In general sense, Siege is pretty straightforward. Actually, the amount of teams that we see nowadays, which is a lot slower. So we have like Lamila lead teams, we have Ashur lead teams. Also the Trishana, whatever his name, Tarnisha team. That one is also lower on speed because it's 21 lead, and with 21 lead, it is pretty easy to outspeed in the first place. I have been actually using more teams like this, where I just simply go in with 2 AoE strips on super high add damage, and then I just go in with like a Robo Last, or I add in this case, you can also go for a, or in this case, I do use like another unit, which is the, what's it called, Songcheng Lao. But you can also just go for like a Wind Robo. I've been doing this a fair bit with Wind Robo as well. But keep in mind, it's only good if your additional damage are doing a lot of damage. And also a bit more creative teams like this out there, because the Tarnisha, which I did mention before, it's the Fire Jennifer, which we do have over here. For some reason, people always bitch when I say Jennifer. It's like, it's a different J. It's like, I don't care. That's my honest opinion on that one. I do not care. But it's a pretty decent unit for offense as well, in a bruiser kind of sense with this. The Lima is not really a necessity out there, but just any kind of form of protection does really help out. It's also kind of nice that the form of protection that I have over here also does have a strip, so you can remove anything that's kind of annoying coming my way in the first place. And most of the time, if anything is an RTA kind of unit, I just use my RTA build for any of those units in the first place, which just makes my life a lot easier on reruning. Because in RTA, in most cases, things are kind of runed up fine. Like, sure, they're not always like on the best runes. If we were in a Siege tournament, I would probably put my absolute best runes to it. But in this case, for the Ashur, the runes that he had were totally fine on it. Of course, Lima's not a unit I normally have ruined in RTA. She's definitely not good in RTA at the moment, so for that, she just gets like kind of the best runes, best artifacts, and then she just simply does like 2.2, 2.3k damage on S1. And then we go for the part which I called Lucian. So even with shield sets, the moment I go in with the Mirenes, so I have 4 Dovas right now, 2 Mirenes, it's just simply way too much damage. And as mentioned, I have a few more of those, so the moment that I can actually use this, I have pretty decent speeds, which also does help out. I can make my Dova even on the fight set. He has like, one side is plus 28 speed increasing effect. The other side is 25 speed increasing effect. So he will follow up regardless, even if I just go for a fight set. Team that I also pretty much always use, and some people have been asking me what's a good replacement for X, Y, or Z in this team. I would say Tomoe can be replaced by Tanisha. That's definitely not that bad. Hacker can be replaced by a Nora, which is also not that bad. Amber, I prefer to keep Amber in. Like, sure, you could place a Nora on the Amber spot as well, but I highly recommend to keep Amber in because she's the main damage. Sometimes you also see a team like this. Dark Demon gets a little bit more popularity because of the buff. Is he really a siege unit in the first place right now? Not necessarily. Plus, I got Grogan, and even when you do miss something on that, Grogan still kills easily. So in this case, did land everything, but if you don't land everything, it's still kind of. And then a bit of a slower hit, so I'm actually going to be speeding this one up a bit, because you know how the Feng Yang Leo Alaya works. It's still a really strong team. I have been overusing it sometimes a little bit, where it's like, maybe I shouldn't use it into an Irene. But that's the main thing, where it just gets a little bit difficult or a little bit dangerous, mainly because the Irene puts something in the back. But the Liliana that you see here on the top right, she's kind of annoying-ish for how many times she can go back into her second form, but it doesn't really do too much damage. Plus, every time she AoEs, it's just Feng Yang's like, yo, 3 hits, I don't care. It's just as simple as that. But her cooldown is actually pretty short. Like, she's back into that form already, so relatively wise, she is hard to kill. And if she can land all of her debuffs and that kind of stuff, it could be pretty dangerous. But it's just that her AI becomes kind of bad. So I would say as an offense unit, I would definitely use her. Or Feng Yang just goes 16 times. That's also a way to clear it, I guess. So yeah, that was the first siege. I'm not sure if I did all 10 of those. I did 10 out of 10 on this one, but I'm not sure if I showcased everything in this video because I was going a little bit back and forth. But let's move on to the next one. So for the next siege, we were against KYU and against Dawn Legends. Definitely an interesting siege over there. And as always, can't miss out on my Ian team. Ian team is just too good because you ignore all of those passives, and that's just... it's way too good. It's definitely an interesting-ish defense to see this as a combination. It's more common that you see a Tessarion on the 3rd slot rather than the Gojo on Fire. Gojo on Fire is pretty dangerous. Like, if people forget that you have to hit it, otherwise his passive rocks a lot more damage, it is definitely strong. But besides that, most of the time, it's not that great. This is also a team you can pretty much throw at everything, even if it gets dangerous. And the main thing is, like, sure, the enemy went for a skill over there. I get disrupted on my skill, but you still have so much value from the other units by just having the spread in there. This as well, having the karma, having the heal block. He went for the skill, while that skill didn't heal in the first place, but the karma against PvE is just so strong because they always use their skills, or not always use their skills, but they mostly use their skills. And then you just clean up from there. It's just super easy, and then it's just a relative easy cleanup from here. Of course, a Burkill can be a little bit annoying. It does have, like, the additional damage. Artifacts most of the time can take a good amount of turns. Can definitely on an armor break do a good amount of damage. But in the end, it's just taking so much damage from just random nonsense while my units are being tanky. It's too strong. This was actually pretty funny offense. It's the thing that we normally use with the Camilla and the Belial. But in this case, I was like, okay, I want to have something to at least kill the enemy fast. Plus, in most cases... well, actually, the skill 2 will have a attribute advantage, but skill 1 doesn't have. So the skill 1 will 100% go on this Ayunu. But look at the Ayunu damage. I just went for like a full Rage Will set on that Ayunu. But that Ayunu, without having the death of the passive, nearly annihilated that other unit right there. Even Wrong Element right here is just annihilating shit. And then you have this Camilla doing absolutely no damage because she's full tank. But this Ayunu did do a good bit of damage. Like, holy hell, did not expect that much damage from it. And then we have the Judgment taking it out. There's also definitely a good bit of Sierra plus Joe Gunn in the meta right now. Sierra Joe Gunn plus Theomar, Sierra Joe Gunn plus Kinky, Sierra Joe Gunn plus LD5. You see a good bit of those coming around. It's a decent team, I would say, in the first place. It's definitely not one of the better teams out there, but I would say a little bit more backline or in a guild that doesn't have that many LDs. Definitely is a very strong offense, or not the offense, defense. But then again, you know what also kills that? Lucian! So we just went in with the Lucian. It's maybe a little bit more scary than the hit that I just did earlier. In this case, we did actually manage to kill everything, and then we just do the cleanup. So simple as that. It's also somewhat common if someone goes like heavy on the LDs like we have over here. It's like, you definitely need a fire unit on that 3rd position. Otherwise, you get Lucianed. This is definitely one of those more tricky ones to Lucian because they have a 28 lead on a 115 base. I'm looking at a 28 lead with a 105 base. But then again, I mostly like to take those risks. Like, it's definitely, if they're swift, they would 100% outspeed me. But if they're not swift, then it's it's guaranteed insta GG. And since it's early season and for the midweek season kind of things, we don't care as much. I'm mostly just going, it's like, yeah, it should be fine. It should be fine. Let's just take it a go. As mentioned before, you have a good bit of those Lamilla lead kind of defense. And this one is actually a full-on Leo counter by the looks of it. Nice thing about Seiana is Seiana gains 25 attack bar per debuff on the enemy. With a Nephthys next to it, it guarantees 100 attack bar. So if the enemy is also at 100, they're probably at like 110, 120. So you cannot take the double turn. But if everything is that slow on the enemy side, you pretty much just gain full attack bar, or you gain full attack bar from that. And then you can start cycling a lot on those skill 2s. He has the same skill 2 as the Marcha has. So for that reason, next to a Nephthys makes it just really darn nice. I also went for this hit. This is super tricky. Also, I did see where there was no buffs on the, or no immunity on the enemy side. This thing was super damn tanky. Also, that Manon did not really want to participate in countering until it went on the wrong element, and then it countered the wrong element for an insta-stun. Sometimes RNG doesn't really make sense in this game, but there we have it back with the additional turn. 11k, that's always a little bit tricky if it starts taking a few extra turns. With the sleep in there as well, I was like, I can remove that, but I do think that he would probably still hit that. In the end, he did do. I'm not 100% sure what the rate is on like getting hit by that, but I was like, I think I'll just take my chances there because it still had a lot of debuffs. It had the armor break. Mainly for the armor break, I was like, don't really want to be removing that armor break just yet. But yeah, that's some decent bit damage on the Nigang. I think Nigangs can definitely do more damage, but to be honest, I haven't been running Nigang in defense for a very long time because it's kind of bad. So yeah, that is all for this siege. Let's move into the final siege. Final siege is actually going to be me doing all of my wings in sequence right from the get-go. So this was actually a full day 2 doing all of my siege hits right after one another because I didn't do any hits on the day 1. But the moment I woke up for the day 2, it was like the midday moment. So we had the fight going on. And from there, I just was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff to hit. I can just do all of my hits right away, which for me is always very chill. It's definitely not always the case, or actually more not the case in like a try-hard guild where you can do that. Mostly they don't really like it if you wait until day 2, so most of the time I hit a lot like super early on the day 1, and then I mostly wait a little bit longer, and then I hit like later on. But in this case, I was like, it actually does fit my timing because I was drinking with a friend of mine yesterday, so I was like, screw it, just gonna do it like this. So in this case, I'm actually gonna go through all of the hits. So every time that I'm off a hit, I'm just going to be speeding things up a little bit. In this case, I actually went for the Feng Yang Leo Alaya team on a Irene. I mentioned it slightly earlier in this video. It's not really that recommended. Like, if this misses, it's 100 stress, but then again, these things are always max accuracy. If I had lower HP on the Leo, it would be a little bit better, because if they start hitting the Leo, it's not that big of a deal. But if they start hard hitting this, plus you also give armor break to yourself over here, which is like, yeah, maybe I should not be doing these. And then we had a little bit of a 1 additional turn, 2 additional turns, 3 additional turns, that kind of shit. So yeah, then you unit dice, and then it's like, yeah, I should be refraining from using these kind of nonsense against that kind of stuff. This was 100% me being too lazy to rerune. That's like, I just was like, I don't want to do this shit. In the end, I went for a little bit better hits later on. I was like, yep, okay, never mind, ain't gonna work. So, yep, do I lose? I do still definitely lose from time to time. So it's like, okay, what does work right then? So we go for the Maximillian, we go for the Chongpang. I don't fully show the runes, but I just show kind of what's going on. So in this case, what I mostly do is just like switch 2 runes over there. The rest is kind of like fine, 224 fast enough over there. And then we just have it to go over here, and we go for all of those hits. As long as we get 1 cooldown increase on the right side, which we did actually get over there, it's just super chill, super easy to actually clean up that whole hit. And I was planning to speed up things when I'm not actually doing a hit, rather than moving on to the next one. Did already ruin my Adriana to a fast set. Not my fast set out there. In this case, I do have to kill, I think, a Cadiz with this hit. So I can just go for speed up effect, because Cadiz on full defense, it is possible, but I highly doubt that. So 45 over there, and then just add 1 rune over here. It's definitely not my best set as well. I should definitely be using more towards like a best set every time that I do this, but 199 in most cases is a fair bit of damage. So we have that 207, and I was like, no, I can actually really easily improve good amount of speeds. Also, in this case, I definitely did not need any of that for the speed increasing effect, so I could have just went for like damage on dark or attack increasing effect. But in this case, this was like, I highly doubt that this thing would do any good. It could have been where the Laura is swift and the Laura were to outspeed me, but most of the time people don't really like to put Lauras on swift. But also the Laura damage, man, holy hell. That's like half HPing my whole team. That's actually some insane damage for Vio Laura right there. So Laura in the end, damage is still really good, and therefore it's still really high wanted for me. Plus, I always talk about making strong pairs. I can make a really strong pair with Laura, TL Leng, Zhongcheng Lao, Neftis, all of that kind of good stuff. So then I can copy all of those sets towards the next one because it's pretty much the same team. It's always chill to have like hits in sequence which are pretty much just copy. So if I can do that's why you always see me do multiple Lucians in a row. That's why you like to see me do multiple Sonias in a row, because there's just copying a whole set from one place to the other. In this case, we did actually have, what, that was 24k bomb. Okay, it did survive good damage. Wait, how much damage did that thing survive? Sorry for me going a little bit back and forth. I do 14k per hit and that thing survived? Yeah, then it explains that on an attack buff you only do 24k. But 14k, that's some good damage, not gonna lie. I did go for damage on wind in this case. Just to be sure, I did go for damage on water with the Sonya. I did go for damage on wind with the Miang. But Miang's damage on that S2 is just so incredibly much, man. Imagine that on an armor break. On an armor break, you're looking at like 35k per hit or something. Like, it's absolutely absurd. But yeah, Miang, very strong unit out there. Definitely one of those you want to have a lot of. Then doing the same team, but with a series. So series mostly Rune, something along the lines of pretty much similar to my Miang. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty much the same thing. In most cases, I do kind of tend to swap, like, I focus more on the artifacts than I focus on the runes, which is not always the greatest things out there. But in most cases, that's where you get most of the damage increase from. So in this case, I went for a combination line of speed increasing effect together with damage on fire. And for that, I could easily take out the thing on the left, which was the most important. And then we take the thing out on the right, 14k per hit. Like, yeah, I don't think there's many Shihos that would like to survive a 14k per hit if the base HP is below 10k. Like, he has like 9.8k base HP. There ain't no way you're surviving that shit. They actually had a few more of these, which was kind of interesting to see. I was like, what works? What if I go Achroma and the Shio goes guaranteed on the Achroma, and then I add in 2 wind units? So it will be 100% on that. As mentioned before, I mostly like to take, if it's an RTA unit, just take my whole RTA set. And I was like, okay, 2 wind units. What are 2 wind units that does kind of make sense? I was already kind of eyeballing the Diana over there. I was thinking about an Adriana, but Adriana, the moment you get Oblivion, it's really bad. So it's like, how about a Riley? How about a Smicer? How about a Sahat? But I was like, okay, I kind of don't want to do it with anything that has a too strong of passive. That if I get Oblivion, it's really hard to shake off the Oblivion. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for a Riley, 100 rest, and just make my way with there. And I'm going to use a Diana, and the Diana is going to be on the RTA build, as mentioned before. And with that, the RTA build, I can actually make it where I probably do an insane amount of damage. And with that insane amount of damage, I can just start taking things out. That was my main plan on this. So let's see if that actually does work out. So if Alt Ego going over there, I did have an artifact of 17 minus water on this, what's it called? On this Achroma. So there is minus on the water. It's just her normal artifact that has like damage up on a few things and minus on the water. So in this case, we can go for heavy hits. My Diana does have pretty decent damage. 4.4k is pretty nice in the first place. So let's see how much we can get for here. Couldn't go for the switch. I was like, okay, then we just stay in this form and we just make the way work over there. In this case, we start healing already and the match is like pretty much over, especially if you land the silence over here. Didn't land the silence over there. I was like, I can switch, but I'm already like fine in this form. Let's just send it as is. It doesn't really matter all too much anymore. In this case, I could have also done that hit on the left side. This hit, like, attack buff 6.4k per hit. Diana, man, Diana still has a good bit of damage. I definitely do feel that Diana, certain matches in the meta, really does fit. It's definitely a strong unit out there. But it's also one of those... Wait, I wanted to see how many times did I glance over here? So we have 1 crit into full glancing. Okay, I was like, why am I doing so little damage? But yeah, that was pretty much a full glancing, and then I think the hit after this also glanced. But yeah, you just pretty much take it out already. But it's like, why did it take so long to take it out? But yeah, if you glance like 4 out of 5, it takes a little bit longer. Well, then the Ian team, I often get asked for the Ian runes, so I'm actually gonna just like speed 2 times and showcase you the Ian runes and whatever I use on this thing. I do have the homunculus, which is called Shangjiao, which is banana in Chinese. I have it on, what's it called? Fight set. With a fight set, it's still fast enough. The main thing is, with the speed buff, your Ian has to be faster than both the Jemaya and the homunculus. And you kind of have to, like, test it out a little bit, or you have to use, like, SWGT with, like, the speed calculation ticks, that kind of stuff, to see how that works, when that works. But in the end, the moment you have that working, you know the kind of speed that you can work with, it's always kind of fine to do. Plus, this team just has, like, a good bit of damage, especially if you're working against something that in the first rotation without the attack buff, you don't have to deal as much damage, and then it's just always a very good hit to do. Which, for my guildies, a lot of my guildies have, because most of my guildies are very much siege main. Ian is actually one of their highest wanted unit because of that. Actually, I have a whole bunch of units, like Kiara's very high wanted for those guys. I actually don't even really use that. Maybe I should be using Kiara more. Maybe I should be using the Light Siri more. Those, in the end, are pretty strong. It's just that they need a lot of speed while still dealing a bit of damage. And then pairing that next to an Adriana, Sonya, or a Water Siri just simply kind of does the job better, right? So that's kind of the thing over there. So at this point, I was like, okay, looking for my next hit. So going in with the typical team, which I do with the, what's it called? With the Sienna and the Tiana and the Neftis. So here you can kind of see me rune up, which is not my fastest set once again, but this is pretty much one of my better, if not my best Tiana set. Yeah, that's pretty much like my best Tiana set that I have for her. It's 299. It's definitely a fair bit on the speed. You can get outspeed by the enemy. If Irene is on Swift, I would probably get screwed. But I was like, YOLO. the siege was already won. Also, the Sienna I kind of know by heart. I've been reruning her a bunch of times. I was just like, just the slot 1 and the slot 2 I normally don't rerune. But the slot 6 and the slot 3, I know by heart where it comes from. Plus, I always throw the accuracy skill 3 on it with like 23 accuracy skill 3. And then it's just like a good old bruiser match. Most cases, people don't really put their Irenes on Swift, but Irene on Swift is definitely really nice against what I'm using, but then it becomes bad against something else, right? So that's kind of the trade-off that you have to make with some of the teams. Like, if you go something Swift, it's really good against one thing, but it's really bad against something else. So where I used it last time with the Robo, and the Zhongsheng Lao, in this case, I went for the double Robo. So just a little bit more free-to-play style. I also will showcase you over here how I do rune that up. So in this case, I'm just going to go for a Swift set on 1. You can go Swift set on 1 like the Moor and the Robo. In this case, the Robo is 234, with just pretty much add damage. I went for the Moor on Despair, which is... I actually think I went for Despair Will, but Despair, the Will part is not really that interesting. Like, this whole team is made to be outspeeding. But then again, I have a slot 6 that's like 31 speed, so I was like, then I just add in the last Will as well, and it's kind of fine. And then this Robo, I was like, then I might as well just do this one on Vio, because why not? So kind of just the sense of that. It's also pretty decent to do like double Robo plus a Herne. No, wait, Hyannis. Hyannis is the dark one of the Druids. No, not the Druids. The other thingy, like the flying thingy with like that came together with the Druids. I forgot that name, but it doesn't really matter. But that one has a speed lead as well. Definitely does work a decent bit as well. But in this case, you definitely can do this if your additional damages are good. Without good additional damages, I would really not recommend to do this. In this case, we did only decrease 1 time on the left, but 1 time was enough for me to pretty much gain my turn back. Also, these units are tanky enough that they can pack a punch, so they're not like fully on just stats for damage, but they still have a decent bit of HP where they can do a bruiser fight. It's definitely an RTA kind of looking fight, which is not really recommended in most cases for like high-end siege, but anything below, like, let's say top 4 guild in siege, I would definitely recommend to use these kind of teams, because they're just really good in the current meta. But keep in mind, good additional damage artifacts, or don't use this shit, because without it, it is pretty ass. So that also makes it where I think I showcased all 30 hits. I did lose one, the one with the lazy hit with the Feng Yang Leo Alaya over there. Don't use that into Irene. That's all you can take from this one. Hope you did enjoy this siege video. I'm not sure if you guys are still enjoying like the Siege videos because I'm kind of using the same themes out there. Well, the double robo's kind of new, so, or not, well, new. I normally don't really showcase that much. So yeah, if you want to see more Siege hits, let me know in the comments, and see you as always in the next one.
Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.